Dear friends, one of the needs that we feel is perfection. I want to be perfect in everything. I do not intrinsically somehow like imperfections. Any lacuna bothers us. We are pleased when things are perfect. When I see that the things are exactly as I would have them, then there is this sense of calm and happiness associated with it. When the things are not as they are or as they should be, then that prompts me to activity to bring that sense of fullness, completeness. And this is our intrinsic nature that prompts us to that. We want to be perfect. And why so? It is, if we dwell inside that why do we want to be perfect? It is because perfection is our true nature. The completeness, the totality, the wholeness, all these are kind of combined in this idea of perfection. There is a story that in a big feast in India, there were lots of people sitting in a row, probably some wedding feast or some such thing, and a lady was serving everybody a big sweet meat called laddu. That is a round ball of sweet. So, and then she was giving everybody a full that round ball. And her little 2-year, 3-year-old son also was sitting there. And when she came right where he was sitting, then she naturally saw that this 2-year-old will not be able to eat the full ball. And so she broke a small piece and put in his plate. And then the little one naturally didn't like this injustice, that everybody is getting a full one and I am being given a small piece. And so he blew the top, started crying aloud, and then the mother gave another little piece. Well, that didn't mend the matters at all. What is this? I mean, everybody is being given a full, and I am being given a piece, not acceptable. So, now the mother decided, she knew that the whole big thing he cannot eat, cannot swallow. So then it struck her that she took a small piece, made a round ball of it, and then put in the plate of this boy. And that made the matters acceptable. That everybody got one full, I also got one full. That fullness, completeness, that was seen there. Size was not that important, but it is full. I also got a full. So this sense that getting complete, getting something full, that is, there is no lack in it, that is important. We all feel when we look at ourselves that we lack so many things. We are not full, we are not complete, and therefore we see the world as the source of uh, fullness. We can go to various things and add them to us, thus we can become full. And therefore there are so many desires that come up. Desires, they are automatic outcome of this sense of being incomplete. And so I feel if I add this thing or that thing, if I add a new car to me, if I add more money to me, if I add, say, a spouse to me, then the things will become complete, they will become full. Otherwise, they are all incomplete, and so we feel distressed because of this feeling of being incomplete and imperfect. So, this perfection, therefore, is what we are seeking, because we truly are perfect if we go to the deep nature of our realities, that what we really are, and that is perfect. Although because of this separation between I and the world, this separation keeps on bothering us, that I lack so many things and they are out there. So there is this constant desire to get things from out there to me and thus make me perfect. And this continues. There is no end to it. It takes quite some time before we realize that there is no end to one's desires. They keep on multiplying. And so the question then remains that where can I become or find that fullness, that completeness, that totality that I am actually seeking? It is everywhere in the scriptures it is described that this fullness is in your true nature. You are perfect. As the Bible begins, that human beings are made in the image of God who is perfect. So we are the image of perfect. We are the likeness of perfect. And thus when we compare ourselves to our true nature, after all, image or reflection is not a thing as such. The thing is that which is reflected, that which is imagined. So that is perfect, and thus this image also feels the need to become that whole. And thus we all have this idea of becoming perfect. When it is searched in the sense of possibility, we find a lot of philosophical discussions in Socrates and Plato about perfection, that what is the perfection? And as this Plato's, this ideal world, the world of ideas or forms, he says that perfection can be there. Perfection cannot be in these forms. As human beings, as things, we cannot be perfect, but as idea, we can be perfect. It is in things there is imperfection, and this imperfection, there are different statements attributed to Plato about it, that by leading, they life to bring out that which is our potential, we can reach, we can strive for perfection. So, this perfection is kind of calling us, but one becomes frustrated after making a lot of attempts. Quite natural, if I am trying to achieve something for a long time, putting in all my efforts, and yet I am not meeting the expected success, then naturally a frustrating feeling sets in, and one feels that there is no perfection here in the world. Like when one is frustrated in getting what one feels to be justly ours, we feel, well, there is no justice in the world. It is commonly felt by people quite naturally that there is no justice in the world. And yet we crave for a just situation, a just world. There should be some justice. This all gets reflected in various philosophical writings and scriptural passages. In scriptures, you see that this idea of perfection is very prominently there as God. God is perfection. In God, one cannot expect any imperfection. Any imperfection there makes that being non-God. There shall be no lacuna. Nothing should be there that is wanting there. It is, everything is perfect there. And so, as human beings, as images of God, we are like God. And so, that perfection is principally or potentially is in us. And that is what we are trying to bring out, sometimes in the right way, sometimes in the wrong way. Wrong way means becoming more selfish and trying to grab many things, and thus adding not to perfection but to imperfection. Whereas when we learn to feel that unselfishness and whatever is described as the principles of justice and compassion, what happens is we start feeling more and more God-like. To become God-like is to march towards perfection. But this doesn't happen as the size or the form. It is, I remember a conversation that there was two of our learned Swamis were discussing about a passage in Upanishads, that it was, yes, we can achieve perfection, and then we together we will be all perfect when I and you and this and that all become one. We together form the perfection. And then that argument after that, yes, together we are perfect. Individually we have imperfections, but together we are perfect. And then after they thought about this, first it appeared to be satisfactory solution. Yes, maybe each of us is not perfect, but when we take all together, then we are perfect. Uh, so there was the thought that now we reached a solution. But immediately a problem was discovered in that what is the meaning of all together, and then are we all considered to be pieces of perfection? And then one of them saw in the scriptures, no, that if you transcend form, not that you have to become united as such, but when one transcends the limitation, one sees oneself as not limited by the boundary of the body, and then feels that sense of oneness with the whole universe, then that makes you perfect. Each of us is perfect, not that we have to be together and thus it will be perfect. Because then in that case my perfection or my achievement of perfection will depend on each other also to become perfect. And then how can then I alone be striving for perfection? So, but that is not really the case. Each drop can transcend its dropness and become ocean. The difference between that feeling that I am a drop and I am ocean, what is it? It is just identification. A misidentification with my dropness makes me limited and imperfect. When that limitation is transcended through analysis and through experience. Analysis means to see what this drop is after all. This drop is water. There is just shape of a drop. That's it. But it is after all just same water as that of the ocean. So I and ocean are same in its nature, in its quality. I actually have no existence. I am ocean really. This denial of one's dropness makes us realize that I am that ocean. And then there we reach the experience of perfection. Yes, I am perfect when I give up identification with what tends to limit me. And each of us can do that. You see that statement in the New Testament in the famous Sermon on the Mount, which is the essential teachings of Jesus. There you read that be you perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. So, what does it mean there? It is, if you look into the context of this statement, you will see that it comes where Jesus is describing that, yes, you have heard that love your friends and hate your enemies. But I say unto you, love your enemies. It is an exercise that, and there in describing the love, for if you love those who love you, what special thing are you doing? Even the evil people also do that. That they also love those who love them. It is there is nothing in this sense of achieving perfection that happens there. Nothing that is happening to expand our relation with the infinite that is happening there. It is anybody, it is an animalish nature really. The one who loves me, I love that person, as long as it suits me. As long as we are in a one gang, even the gangsters, they would be loving each other. If they fall out, one goes to one gang, another goes to another gang, that is gone. Same thing, that in a family or in an expanded groups, you see that this love is only so long as it is that person loves me, I love that person, that's it. So that is, what more are you doing there? So I say unto you, he says, Jesus says, love those who torment you. Loving that is something special, and that is where he says, see, that is our Father in heaven who loves everybody. He gives the example in that passage that just as the sun gives his light freely to good and evil, does not see that whether that person is worshipping me or not worshipping me, so also you shall love everyone. That is a very important step in transcending our littleness, to learn to love those who do not love us. Easier said than done, friends, but that is the way to be perfect. And therefore, at the end of that passage, he says that be you perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Now, is this perfection really achievable? Many say, well, we can go closer to it, but we can never attain perfection. Perfection is only for God. God who is in heaven, there is the perfection. The Father in heaven is perfect, but I on earth here is ever doomed to remain imperfect. I can strive to be godlike in many respects, but after all I can go only this far. And so striving for perfection is possible for me. Attaining perfection is not possible for me. It is, but then you have to assume that what was told in the scripture, in all different religions you will find this theme, to be perfect as God. And if this is impossible, then we have to assume that the scriptures are telling us something that is impossible to achieve. And that is not how the scriptures are to be seen. They are meant to take us to the ultimate stage that we can be. And if they have said that yes, be perfect, be Brahman, you are Brahman, that is how the Upanishads declare, you are that. A very powerful statement, just like when I was studying this Jesus statement, that be you perfect, and then from the original Greek from which this is translated into English, the commentators mention that this is a very strong statement, that it is not an allegorical statement or just kind of eulogy, but it is an emphatic, strong statement that be you perfect, you shall be perfect. as your Father in heaven is perfect. And then how is that to be achieved? Can I become perfect as a human being, as a particular piece of this matter? Can I become perfect? It is possible only by realizing that I am that. I am divine. I am. Therefore, it is mentioned that we are all made like God. God is in and through all of us. And so we are essentially divine God, and that is when we can become perfect. Just to give an analogy, that Einstein showed that it is not possible for anything to move by the speed of light. You cannot attain the speed of light. And quite logical it is that it is not possible for anything to be accelerated to that speed, because it will mean that infinite force will have to be exerted. As the speed start approaching this higher and higher speed, what happens is to accelerate that to a higher speed requires more force. And therefore it comes to a barrier where it will need infinite force to propel anything to that speed of light. And therefore it is the ultimate limit. Things can never be propelled to the speed of light. But the important thing there is that doesn't mean that speed of light is impossibility. You cannot propel anything that is moving slower by the speed of to the speed of light. That can be understood. But that doesn't mean speed of light is an impossibility, for the obvious reason that light has the speed of light. Light has the speed of light. And so if we say nothing has the speed of light, that is not true. Light has the speed of light. And so if we realize, if that thing realizes that it is light, then it has speed of light. It is not possible for an object to accelerate. Similarly, as an individual, it is true that I can never attain perfection by remaining an individual, but I can transcend that individuality. The passage that I was alluding to from the Upanishads comes in Chandogya Upanishad, where the student, after studying about 12 years or so in a school, comes back graduated and therefore puffed up, and then his feet are not on the ground, and so just talking without respect to people. So his father saw that, and so he asked him, have you realized that ultimate principle? Have you experienced that ultimate principle? Why are you so puffed up? And then that young boy introspects and realizes that no, I have not, and so prays to his father, will you teach me? And the father starts teaching him, and he tells, giving examples, that look, just as he tells him just an experiment, that makes us understand things better. That go and get the fruit of a tree that was right in front, probably where they were talking. You see that tree there, a big, huge tree. Go and get that fruit fallen there. As that brings this small fruit, and then he says, break it. And the sun breaks it. There are so many tidbits that come out of it. Okay, very good. Now take one of those little balls in that, break it. What do you find in that? He says, well, nothing, almost tiny, tiny, I can't see it. Yeah, there is nothing. So the father says that, look, in that tiny thing is the potential for this tree to come out. This very little thing is potentially the tree. So, that which you cannot even discern by your eyes, that has the potential to be the tree. So, like the wise, you are that, just as this little seed is the tree. So, you are that, you are infinite. Just know this. The son says, well, please explain it to me again, I don't get it. Okay, then he gives many other examples that, it is like, you see, the bees, they collect honey from thousands of flowers and store in their hive. Now, before they put it there, it was honey of this flower and honey of that flower. That's a beautiful analogy. It was before it was all put together, it was honey in this flower or honey in that flower. When now it is all put together there, now do they have still that individuality that I am honey from that flower and honey from that flower? Their individualities are gone. And then the question is, did they really have separateness even before they were put in together in the hive? That individuality, that separateness was also only because where it was kept. The honey as such was not different, but where it was placed, that was this flower and that flower. So similarly, what is I here and I there and I here in so many other things, they are really one and the same. So when you see this, you will see that you are all that is. You are that, and that is perfect. That is how you lose your littleness, your pettiness, and then what Swami Vivekananda likes to call puny ego. You dissolve your puny ego, and you feel the oneness with the universal, oneness with the truth that is all pervading. And that being perfect, now you see that you are perfect too. In Bhagavad Gita, a verse comes describing that this person is, that this whole, the divine, is perfect. It has no fault at all, no blemish at all. Nirdosham hi samam Brahma. That the nirdosh means without a blemish, without a fault. This divine is without a blemish. And it is therefore sama means same everywhere. That is same everywhere. And therefore, these wise people establish themselves in it, and thus they also see that they are perfect. As individual human beings, we may always feel the imperfection. Oh, my nose is rather too long or too short. That can make us feel imperfect. Well, I am too thin or too stout. That can make me feel imperfect. I don't have this skill or that skill. That may make me feel imperfect. I don't have much money. That may make me feel imperfect. But when that little individuality is dissolved, then you see that you are perfect. Attaining perfection is not possible, but seeing that I am perfect is possible. Attaining attempts to attain perfection can only be helpful to see that I need to dissolve this ego. These are the methods of dissolving the ego. But like instead of seeing I only here, you see the same self in others also. That is another important teaching in Jewish and Christian scripture, that love thy neighbor as thyself. That it is, and thyself is an important word in that as you love yourself, so also you love others, because it is same you in all these different things. And therefore, you see, by doing that, you purify yourself and reach this stage where now you can see that you and the divine, they are one and the same. Plato also mentions that this perfection is possible by that eliminating the temptations. The temptations, when we fall prey to them, it is then we realize how imperfect we are. But by learning to resist them, we kind of travel towards that. So just as you cannot accelerate anything to the speed of light, but light travels by the speed of light. So similarly, I cannot become perfect as an individual, but I can shed away my individuality, learn to do that through various practices, and then there is no separateness there. There is I and the divine. We see that we are identical, same. There is no separation between that. It vanishes, and there then we can see that I am perfect. That statement makes sense there. Its practicality comes into force there, that be you perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. So every attempt to expand our awareness, there are two ways of doing it. One is to feel I in everything, expansion of our awareness. The other way is to reduce our I, make it smaller and smaller, make it zero. Either to make it infinite or make it zero. The two ways for two different temperaments, which in end means the same thing. Either you completely make yourself zero, and then you are, infinite. The infinite alone remains. So that is the last line of the verse with which we started, that this world infinite, when it is taken out from the infinite, all that remains is also infinite. So if you remove yourself, that I or ego, what remains is perfect. That is one way of looking at it. The other is expand yourself and fill everything with that sense of I. I am all that is. And thus the result is same. I am zero or I am full. The meaning actually remains the same. It is, the problem is I am so much, that becomes the problem. So once one disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Girish Chandra, was describing that this Maya could not catch two people. Maya could not catch two people. Who are the two? Two other disciples of Sri Ramakrishna of completely different temperament. One was Nag Mahashaya, Dr. Nag. He was a householder disciple and he was a physician. So he was called Nag, Dr. Nag. So Nag Mahashaya. And another was Swami Vivekananda. So he said Swami Vivekananda became so big that the snares of Maya could not hold him. So therefore he could not be caught. He expanded himself so much. Nag, Dr. Nag made himself so small that howsoever Maya tried to make its the holes smaller and smaller, it still was able to escape out of that net and thus could not be caught. So in both these ways one overcomes this littleness and see that I am perfect, I am divine. Thank you, friends. Any questions? Okay, Charlie?
You talked about loving your neighbor as yourself. You hear stories about Arjuna who was told to fight, and Arjuna was told to fight,
Yeah.
and the snake was told to hiss. What are some examples of people who have loved their enemies?
Well, love is a very important concept. That does not mean that you behave externally in the same way to others. It is you try to love others. But then this is a passage, as when you feel there is the best, but then if you are not able to do the best, do the next best, then or the next best, like that. One has to begin from where we are. So if your mind is so full of hatred towards somebody, and then you are not fighting just out of either fear or the worries about loss or people blaming you or getting defeated, then that there is no way you can get rid of the anger. And so therefore for that person, like Arjuna, who knew that it was right for him to fight, but was not fighting because of attachment and delusion. So for that Arjuna to love will be possible only after transcending this anger, and that would be through this fight. Hissing also, it is a much elevated person than Arjuna. That snake has been shown as transformed, became saintly. Earlier it used to just pounce on others and bite them. But now it has become saintly. But what happened, therefore? The others started throwing stones on the poor thing, and the snake became wounded. And so, when the holy man who had told him that no, no, you should love everyone, don't bite people, then when he saw that he has become like this, the snake is all wounded and bruised, and the snake told, now I have no enmity, I love everyone, and therefore I have come to this state. Everybody, all the kids come and throw stones at me. And then the man said that, well, I told you not to bite, I didn't tell you not to hiss. So hiss, so that because you have to love everyone, and everyone includes your own person too. So, there are different, the love does not have to be the same thing or the same expression. You love, say, you love ice cream, means what you do? I love ice cream means what do? What treatment you give to ice cream? Exactly. But I love cat. What does it mean? Yeah, just to give an example, you love both, but the expression of that love in different relations become different. So it is, therefore you love everyone, but the expression of love has to be different. The same electricity in so many different appliances. Here, this sound system makes it a louder sound. That is what the purpose of electricity there is. In these bulbs, it gives light. In heaters, it heats. In refrigerators, it cools. The same heat, but different expressions. So, same love will be differently expressed. And that since you quoted from Mahabharata, I can tell you that the way Krishna fights is like this, that okay, these things are to be, the love for them is by killing them. That love for some others is by putting them somewhere else. Love for someone is, playing with them. There are so many ways in which the love is expressed, and it is told there in his biography in Bhagavatam or in Mahabharata, that even those whom he killed, they achieved liberation because they came in contact with God. So when you come in contact with God, then you achieve that state. So it is love. Like Sri Ramakrishna, he was described by Swami Vivekananda as love. Capital letters Love. And but Sri Ramakrishna, did he behave in the same way with everyone? Not externally speaking the same way. The love for everyone, but the behavior with everyone was different. To a disciple he says, therefore, that yes, there is certainly God in the tiger too. It is true that God is in everyone, so you should love God in everyone, and God is in tiger too. But the way to worship God in tiger's form is not the same. You can't go too close. So the way to worship the tiger God is from a distance. keep safe distance and salute from a distance. That is the way to worship or love tiger. So the way of expression is different.